Hi, Shannon here from houseimprovements.com. Today we're going to show you how to assemble a wall cabinet, a typical wall cabinet that you can buy at any big box store that needs to be assembled in your home. Okay, so what we've got here is a typical 12-inch wide wall cabinet. So it's going to be a 12-inch box by 30 inches high. It's got a single door. We've got some hardware that we've also purchased from the same supplier. Hinges. It's got a shelving package. This is typically how you're going to find everything. It's kind of all individual parts and pieces that you've got to make sure you get everything and assemble it properly. Once you open up the actual cabinet box, you're going to find that inside of there is all your dowels and little clips and screws and stuff to actually assemble the box. So you'll see that once we open it up. You don't need too many crazy things for as far as tool wise, but you're probably going to possibly want a rubber hammer, a regular hammer, a knife for opening packages, a couple screwdrivers, maybe a couple small drills. It'll just kind of speed things up for you. I also like to keep a couple just small little containers or cups or something, because you're going to end up with quite a few pieces and that once you get everything opened up, just to try to keep track of everything. So I'm going to go ahead first of all and open up the cabinet box itself. So by box, I mean the actual frame of the cabinet, not including the door or anything like that. These, I've had to assemble quite a few of these actually for customers because they get frustrated with the instructions or lack of good instructions packed with most of them. So sometimes it can get a little frustrating that way. Once you've done a few, you kind of figured it out, but there can be so many different options that every one is a little bit different. And you're also going to find you're going to need to make a trip to the recycling center when you're done, because you're going to have a bazillion pieces of cardboard. They do wrap everything up really well. So I've started to open the box. We're starting to get a few pieces out. It does come with these instructions. There's generally not a lot of wording in them, and if there is, you can't understand it. But there is a lot of pictures and diagrams, so if you're half decent at charades, you can usually figure that part out. But we're going to go through the process here to help you out, because if you're anything like me, I can usually learn better by watching somebody do it. And that is the reasoning for all the videos we've shown you. So we'll get rid of the cardboard. Let's take a quick inventory of what came in your package, just in case you got shorted. Generally it doesn't happen. These guys are pretty good. But so we've got a top and bottom panel for the cabinet. We've got a right and a left hand side. This thin flimsy piece here is the back. Not the best setup, but it works. We've got some wall mounting clips and caps there, and we've got this baggie full of all miscellaneous pieces of hardware. So we're going to open that up, put it in the cups. You'll probably find you have a few odds and ends left over. They're pretty decent at giving you a few extras generally. I'm just going to sort a few things out here. If you've done this before, you know what I'm talking about as far as some of the things not being 100% clear. Just trying to make room here. Okay, so basically the first thing to start with is you've got some dowels, wooden dowels usually. And if you look in the instructions, all this stuff is pre-drilled. So if you look in the instructions, it'll usually give you a pretty good idea of the holes that they want these dowels placed in. You could put a little bit of glue in there. Realistically, the dowels are more to help line everything up and hold it lined up. There is another system here that kind of locks everything together, but if you want to put glue in there, you go right ahead. But usually if you just get them started, just tap them in until they bottom out. Like so. So we've got those in. Now, as I said, everything's pre-drilled. All these bazillion holes you see down each side, that's actually the adjustable shelving holes. So that can get a little confusing too, so it's not a bad idea just to reference to the instructions now and again. But along the tops and bottoms, you would have seen that you had bigger holes that the dowels fit into, and these other holes are offset from the main rows if you look, just slightly. Those holes get these small little, they're like a metal dowel basically. They get those inserted into them, and they just thread in there. They recommend not using a drill. Once you've done a few, you'll get the knack of it, and you'll probably go to the drill because it just speeds it up. You just have to be careful not to strip them out. So you just simply start them into the hole that they gave you until they tighten down. Typically you're going to find there's 4 on each one of the sides, 4 metal pins and 4 wooden dowels. So I'll just quickly get those all in there. Probably end up with 3, I guess, or 3 or 4. And like I said, this is these ones are from one particular big box store, but you really find that most of them are very similar in construction and assembly. As far as I know, they don't come out of the same plant, but it's quite possible that a lot of them do. Okay, so I've got those all in there. Now we'll just kind of identify right and left. You'll see on the front edge there'll be a finished strip, usually matching whatever's on the sides of the piece. But on the back edge is this dadoed groove where it's raw wood. That's where the back gets nailed onto after. So we'll just kind of orientate the 2 pieces. So I've got the two fronts to the outside. It would sit together like this. I'm just going to flop it down like so. Then we're going to need to grab one of either the top or the bottom. It doesn't really matter. And you can see that this is also pre-drilled on the ends. This is all going to fit together like so onto those dowels once we get everything in place. So it's pre-drilled on the edges to fit your dowels, but also on the bottoms or the top, you're going to have these larger holes. And they send these little cams along. They're a little round cam lock that fit into these bigger holes, and when you assemble this all together, they actually tighten around the metal dowels that you already inserted here, and that's what draws and holds everything together. So when you look on the face, you're going to see that there's a little arrow pointing one direction. You want to point that arrow. You want to face the arrow up to the hole on the edge. Okay, and just push that down in there. It's going to slip a little in past flush, that's fine. So line your arrows up. Okay. Now, we should be able to basically line up all our holes and insert everything down tight like that. Okay, so I've just pushed it down tight onto that piece. Now those little cam locks we put in, again, same screwdriver. You insert it into the cam lock, turn the cam lock until you basically can't turn it anymore. It's usually about half a turn. And that, like I said, that just grabs on those metal dowels that we already inserted in there. So we're going to do the same thing for the other end of the cabinet. So this is an alternative if you know, you don't need custom cabinets made. You know, these types of cabinets are generally sent out of the factory in already established sizes. So you're married to whatever sizes they manufacture. But if you can make that work in your kitchen setup, a lot of people prefer this because they can kind of do a lot of it themselves and hopefully save a little bit of money. I don't know that the cabinets are necessarily a ton cheaper when you figure it all out, but I think, you know, you're saving when you talk about the labor part. Okay, so I assembled the one side, then I just simply laid the other side on top, lined all the pins and dowels up. gave it a smack. Sometimes you gotta, use the rubber hammer, just tighten it up, but most times they go together pretty good. Same thing, I'm going to just tighten up these cams. It's nice to have a nice flat table, decent sized table to work on at a nice height so it's relatively comfortable for you. So we're getting there. We just about got the box assembled. So we've got that all top and bottom on, the sides on. We're going to lay it on its face. So we've got that kind of exposed side up. And this is where the back comes into play. I guess first of all what we'll do, good way to check if something is square is taking your tape measure and measuring diagonally from one corner to the opposite, both ways. Those two measurements should be the same measurement if you've got things laying straight, or laying square, I mean. So we're about 32 and 9/16 there, and we're just about 3/4 this way, so we're just a hair longer that way. So I'm just going to give it a little squeeze. I'm just trying to get it close until I get the back in place. So there I'm at 5/8, we should be pretty much there. Yeah. Okay. So you'll notice on the back, on this manufacturer, they've got one side's got a wood simulated look to it, just like the rest of the cabinet. The other side just plain brown hardboard. So obviously put the nice side in. And again, you could glue this in, but it's not really necessary. And that just sits right down in the groove they've already given you there. Just need a little bit of a love tap here. Just like so. Okay, so we've got it sitting in there. I'm just going to recheck my diagonal. And I'm back at 5/8 again, so that should be what we wanted. Looks good. Okay, so they also include a little package of nails. And that's for putting the back on. So they usually send you lots of nails. I would space your nails about every 4 to 6 inches apart. Now remember in your mind, you only have so much of an edge there to nail into, so don't get too crazy nailing way in or it's going to poke to the inside. So if you stay within about 1/8 of an inch on this particular manufacturer's cabinets from the edge, tack that in place. I'm going to tack all the way down one side, recheck my square, and then I'll do across one end. Because as you're hammering, things are going to move around a little bit. If you wanted, you could use if you have an air nailer at home or a stapler, you could use it. I actually find that usually these guys send the backs are such thin material that the air nailer or stapler usually blows the fastener right through it. So I don't think they hold as well. It only takes a minute to pound these nails in. Maybe your kid or wife can help you. So I'm just going to recheck my square. See, I moved a little bit there, so I'm a little longer this way. There. Back in talk there. Just going to nail across the one end here, and that should hold it, and then I'll finish nailing it off. These guys have a bit of a lip here on the top and bottom, so you got to angle that nail just a little bit to stay tight. I'll nail down the other side, do the other end. We've got the main construction for the box. Okay, so we got the nails all in there. I'm just going to flip this around. Now, you probably noticed that the back had these holes in here. That's the top. Okay, so if maybe there's some damage you want to try to hide, and you can hide it to the top or bottom or whatever, just make sure you orientate your back in the right direction. Okay, so those are the top. We aren't going to worry about the shelves right now. Really, all that's in here, for this cabinet, it comes with 2 shelves. There's a little package shrink wrapped on the side with the pins in it that go into these holes, and the shelves sit on it. So I don't think there's any need in opening that up. I will open the door though. Because everything is in cardboard, you really need to be careful when opening it that you don't damage something. You know, once you kind of get it started, it's fairly flexible enough that the tape will usually rip open once you have it. Okay, so that's our door. We're going to need this hardware that I set behind us before. That's one thing to note, and I think I maybe mentioned it before, that there's a lot of different pieces and they package everything separately. Again, these are the hinges for the door. You'd think maybe they'd come with the door, but they don't. You know, they try to package all this stuff up to save them as much money as they can when they're shipping. So, you know, it's easier to send out a box full of just those than them taped in the side of that door. Okay, so when you open up that hinge package, basically what you're going to find is you're going to find two hinges, European style hinges. You're going to find two little clear bumpers, and you're going to find two hinge plates. Now these hinge plates screw into the door, or into the side of the cabinet, so you'll have to determine which way the door is going to swing. The hinges themselves, this manufacturer really has a nice setup. They used to use screwed in hinges, but they've gone away from that, and they're actually a friction cam fit hinge now, so just a lot easier to deal with. So this is what your hinge looks like before you've put it in the door. This little flap is up. You're going to find in the door there's one large hole and two small ones on each edge of it. So you're going to leave that little flap up. You're going to push the hinge right tight down into those two holes and close that flap. What that flap does is actually expand these two combination rubber and metal cams here, and they just friction fit into that hole. There is some accessory holes if you found one that came loose or something for some reason and you wanted to tighten it up. You could insert screws as well that would be covered with this door, but it's not required. So again, push it in, push the cam locked, and the hinges are all attached to the door. My cabinet here, when I've got it on the wall, this cabinet's going to be mounted on the wall, and I want this door to be hinged on the right hand side. So I'm going to lay it on the right hand side, and I'm going to, I guess I should turn it this way so you can kind of see. I'm going to insert these into the cabinet themselves. Now these come pre-set up with a plastic expandable dowel, I guess, basically, with the screws started in it. Those dowels and screws slide down into the pre-drilled holes, and then you tighten them up. So something else to look for, you can kind of see the shape of this particular hinge plate. You can see how the back end here, the center part is sticking out a lot further. And there's also an arrow right engraved in there, and I don't know if you can see that, but the arrow is pointing out. That points towards the door when you put it into the cabinet. And I can't just remember which set of holes this one goes into, because there's so many. So what we're going to do is just lay the door here so we can kind of line it up where it needs to be, and then I can see which holes it goes into. Okay, perfect. So we've got to skip one hole and then insert this guy. So I don't know if you can see that. There's my plastic pieces on the back with the screws started in. And I'm going to insert that right into these holes. Push it in tight. Give it a little tap just to make sure it seats in there properly. And this one's the same thing. So I'm going to push it in by hand, give it a little shot with the hammer, and those are started. Then I'm going to take a drill, tighten those screws just a little bit. Again, just don't over tighten anything. You're going to strip it out, and then you're going to be back at the hardware store trying to find just that piece. Okay, so there's our cabinet, and you might want to come in a little closer for this again, if I can get this the right way for you to see it. These hinges, again, these particular ones don't need a screw. You don't have to tighten anything up to actually mount these hinges on. They just simply clip right onto those clips. So you line it up. I'm kind of doing this backwards, so it feels a little awkward for me. And it just, you basically get the front end locked on that clip that you installed on the cabinet and clip the back end in. Really simple. If you want them out, there's a little button right on the back here. Squeeze it with your finger. The door is off. Okay. So we've got that all on there. There's lots of different adjustment on these style of hinges, these European hinges, and that's really why they're so popular. They're easy to work with. So I wouldn't bother adjusting anything. Just get the door so that it closes on the cabinet. Don't worry if it's up or down or side to side or whatever. As long as it basically goes on there. Once you have the cabinet on the wall, you've got everything, all the cabinets on there, then you'll want to do your adjustments so that you can line doors up and get them straight and that sort of thing. So, but now what you do have for adjustment is, if you look down here, the two screws that we fastened that plate, okay, we'll look up here. The two screws that you fastened this plate to the cabinet with, here and here, the bracket itself is actually slotted. So if you needed to slide the door up and down, you can loosen those off. They don't have to come out, just loosen them off, and that plate should slide. You've got about an 1/8 inch of adjustment there, up or down. Okay, so that's one thing you can do. Now there's two other adjustments. One, this front screw on the actual hinge will actually, depending which way you turn it, you can tilt your door left or right with that screw. Okay? The back screw, which is this one way back here, what it does is that actually will slide the door at that point in or out. So you've got lots of range of motion on these type of hinges, so but there's no point in playing with them until you got all the cabinets hanging on the wall. Because as you hang them, you might pull things out of square a little bit or twist a little bit. You can use your hinges to generally straighten some of that out. So now that's the basic gist of that style of cabinet. Like I said, they're fairly cost effective. You can assemble them yourselves. There is a range, generally a range of door styles, door colors, all that sort of thing. Maybe one of the disadvantages that I see is when you've got a bank of these cabinets all assembled and you've got a darker door like this, what tends to happen is you're going to see this lighter edge tape color. You're going to see the lighter color of the edge tape between the crack of the two doors side by side. Some people don't seem to mind it. To me, it kind of catches my eye, and I'm not a big fan of it. If your doors were, a clear maple color or a clear finish, you wouldn't even see it. But because this particular one has the darker finish with the lighter cabinet finish, you do see a few lines and things like that. But you can save a few bucks by doing them. They aren't necessarily custom, and they don't come with a custom price either for the most part. Okay, so not that difficult. And like I said, they do have certain variety of sizes, so it's best to see what they have for sizes as you figure out your kitchen layout. A lot of the stores will have a whole kitchen department, and they'll have people there with computerized programs to help you figure it out. So if you take your measurements of your room, windows, doors, all that kind of, anything in the room you've got to work around, they can usually sit down with you, and generally I don't think they charge you to do it. And that way they know exactly what sizes they can provide and what accessories there are and that sort of thing. So yeah, give it a try. Really, all that would be left to do on here would be to install your hardware, whatever style you take, and that's all I can say. So there's assembly of a wall cabinet from a big box store, and hopefully it worked out all right for you. We're also going to upload a video shortly for a base cabinet with some drawers in it. A little more work to do with that one, but we're going to do a video on that one as well. So have a look for it. You can find it on our YouTube channel. You can go to our website at houseimprovements.com, find it in the video link. You know, if you come across any questions about this project or anything else, we also have the forum as well that's available through the website. All right, thanks a lot.